Hello and welcome to this video tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at Unit 1, Lesson 2, Seeing Structure to Solve Equations. We're going to be looking at the fluency, application, and reasoning sections of this lesson. Please remember to pause or rewind the video as needed. Let's begin. For number 1, we want to know if this expression says x over 5 minus 3, which is the correct order in which operations have been done to x. Well, if you look at what's going on here, x is being divided by 5, and that result is being subtracted by 3. So, number 3, x was divided by 5, and 3 was subtracted from the result. Number 2, which of the following is a solution to 6x plus 1 equals 4? Show the steps or explain how you found the solution. Well, let's solve it. To get x by itself, you have to get rid of the 6 and the 1. So I see a plus 1 there. I'm going to do the opposite of what I see. So I'm going to begin by subtracting 1 to both sides, like this. Now, this cancels, because 1 minus 1 is 0. Rewriting this, I get 6x, because that's all that's left over, is equal to 4 minus 1, which is 3. The last step is to do the opposite of what I see here. Now, I see 6x, which is 6 times x. The opposite of times is divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 6. So our last step is x, which is now by itself, is equal to 3 over 6. Now, please don't get that confused. 3 divided by 6 is not 2. 3 divided by 6 reduces to 1 over 2, which is 1/2. Number 3, the solution to 5 times x minus 2 minus 6 is 24. Well, let's figure this one out. So 5 of x minus 2 minus 6 equals 24. Well, there's a couple ways we could go about doing this. We could start by adding the 6 to both sides, or we could distribute through parentheses. I'm going to actually do distributive property this time just to kind of get some practice with it. So 5 times x and then 5 times negative 2. Well, 5 times x would be 5x. 5 times negative 2, well, that's negative 10. So 5 times the parentheses x minus 2 is 5x minus 10. And then minus the 6 you see here equals the 24. Now, at this point, you could combine those like terms, and you get 5x minus 10 minus 6 would be a total of minus 16, and that equals 24. At this point, you have to get rid of the negative 16 and the 5. Well, get rid of the negative 16 first. Anything added or subtracted, get rid of it first. So the opposite of subtracting 16 would be to add 16 to both sides. And we get 5x equals 24 plus 16 is a total of 40. Now, last step, if I see 5x, that means 5 times x. The opposite of multiplying by 5 would be to divide by 5. X is now by itself, and 40 divided by 5 is 8. Okay, in the application section, we're going to do essentially the same thing, but we want to make sure we can write the equation from the verbal description first, okay? So the first one, number 4, not so bad. Question number 5 is a little challenging, so again, if you need to pause it and rewind it, do what you need to do to get this, okay? Number 4, if a number is increased by 5, so x plus 5, got that so far. So x plus 5 is what I have so far. And the result is then divided by 3. So then we're going to take that and divide it by 3. And that result is 7 equals 7. Okay, well, that's not so bad. That's not bad. We'll go ahead and solve this one in a minute. Let's go down to number 5 and come up with the equation for that one. Max and his friend Zeke are comparing their ages. They figure out that if they double Max's age from 3 years ago and add it to Zeke's current age, the sum is 26. If Zeke is currently 8 years old, determine how old Max is. Ooh, okay, so first we got to come up with the equation. Then we'll plug in Zeke's age to get to that, all right? So Zeke is going to be, we know Zeke, we'll let it be Z equals 8. He's 8 years old. But Max, M, is the unknown. I'm going to use the letter M and Z instead of X this time, just to keep it kind of fluid and going with the names, M and Z. So how do we figure this out? Well, we know that if we double Max's age from 3 years ago, well, 3 years ago means to subtract 3. So if I take Max's age minus 3, and then I double it, which means times 2, and add it to Zeke's current age, but what is Zeke's current age? It's 8. It's going to equal the 26. Okay, so that's what we're looking for right there, and we'll solve that equation for M. Okay, in number 4, we're going to solve that equation for X. Okay, let's look at this. So if I see this here, I need to get rid of the 3 and the 5. Well, the result is being divided by 3, so let's actually start there. I'm going to take this, just recopy it down real quick. And I'm going to start this by multiplying, because I see divide by 3, so I'm going to start by multiplying both sides by 3. And if I do that, I get x plus 5 equals 7 times 3 is 21. Subtract your 5. And 21 minus 5 would be 16. Okay, and in number 5 here, we're solving this equation for M. Now, I'm going to do this differently. I did this using distributive property last time. I'm going to just undo the problem. I'm going to start by subtracting 8. So minus 8 to both sides cancels. 2 times M minus 3 equals, well, 26 minus 8 is, 26 minus 8 is what, 18? So 18. Now I need to get rid of that 2. Well, I can see I'm multiplying by 2. The parentheses means multiply by 2. So I'm going to do the opposite of multiplying by 2, and I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Cancels, cancels. Now I'm left with M minus 3 equals 18 divided by 2 is 9. We're almost done. The opposite of subtracting 3 would be to add 3. And that means Max is 12 years old. Okay, so on to page 4, our final page. In part 6 application, we have a rectangular area is being fenced along a river that serves as one side of the rectangle. You're kind of looking at it from the top view. Write an equation that relates the amount of fencing F needed as a function of the width and the length. Okay, so the amount of fencing, the total amount of fencing, total means plus. Well, I'm adding all of it. Well, what am I adding? I'm adding width plus length plus width. Well, width plus width would be 2 times the width plus your length. So that would be your equation for the total fencing that you would need. Now, if the width is 12 feet and the length is 20 feet, what is the value of the fence? How much fencing do you need? So 2 times, we're going to plug in for the width, 12 feet, and for the length, 20 feet. So 2 times 12 is 24, plus 20 means we need a total of 44 feet. Total of 44 feet. Okay, so it says in part C, if we know the amount of fencing we have available is 120 feet, and we want to devote 30 feet to the length, then set up an equation to solve for W and find the width. Okay, we know what's available is 120 feet, so I'm going to start there. And that's got to equal what? Well, if you think about what we have there, what was the equation? 2W plus L. So 2W plus L, but the L, 30 feet of it is devoted to the length. So 2W plus 30. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to solve this equation for W and find how much the width is. So to get W by itself, I have to get rid of the 2 and the 30. Now I'm going to rearrange this equation. 2W plus 30 equals 120. So I'm flip-flopping the equation. I'm reversing the order. So I have to get rid of the 30 and the 2. Well, I'm going to start with the 30. The opposite of adding 30 is to subtract 30 from both sides, so I'll do that. And I get 2 times the W equals 90. Now, I see 2W is 2 times W. The opposite of that would be to divide by 2 both sides. And W would equal 90 divided by 2, which is 45 feet. Okay, in part 7 and 8, in our reasoning section, we have expressions, and in these expressions, we're going to list in part A what was done to x. In part B, we're going to reverse the operations to solve and get x by itself. Okay, so we have this right here. We're going to take a look at it. Now, a couple of things. Number one, we're multiplying by 2, and that result is being subtracted by 1. So we can start there. So x is multiplied by 2. Number 2, the result of 2 times x is decreased or subtracted by 1. There's the minus 1. Okay, now this result was multiplied by 5. Okay, now after we multiply by 5, that result was divided by 3. Okay, and then finally, that result was decreased or subtracted by 4. Okay, so let's reverse the order of this and solve for x. Now, we're going to go in this order, though. We're going to start with step 5, and the opposite of decreasing by 4 is to add 4. Then we're going to go to opposite of step 4. The opposite of dividing by 3 is multiply by 3. Then we're going to go the opposite of step 3. The opposite of multiply by 5 is divide by 5. The opposite of subtracting 1 is to add 1, and the opposite of multiplying by 2 is to divide by 2. So we're going to take this one step at a time. First, let's write the equation down. So we have 5 times 2x minus 1 over 3 minus 4 equals 11. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the opposite of decreased by 4. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides and rewrite. So the entire left side is pretty much the same. 5 times 2x minus 1 over 3, that part cancels, equals 11 plus 4 is 15. Now I'm doing the opposite of dividing by 3. Well, the opposite of dividing by 3 is to multiply by 3. You can do that by setting up some parentheses. Multiply by 3, multiply by 3. Cancels, cancels, and I'm left with, on the left side, 5 times 2x minus 1. On the right side, I'm left with 15 times 3, which is 45. Okay, now I'm doing the opposite of the third step, which is the opposite of multiplying by 5 is to divide by 5, both sides. Cancels, cancels. And I get 2x minus 1 equals 9. 45 divided by 5 is 9. Okay, now we're down to our last step, or last two steps. I'm doing the opposite of decreasing by 1, so the opposite of subtracting 1 would be to add 1. 2x, those cancels, and I get 10. Final step, we're doing the opposite of multiplying by 2. Well, the opposite of multiplying by 2 is to divide by 2. So divide by 2 both sides, and x equals 5. Okay, so part 8. Think about the equation 4 times the quantity 3x plus 2 equals negative 16. Solve this equation by reversing what has been done to x. Okay, so what do I see going on with x? It's being multiplied by 3, add 2, then divide by 4 is the last thing it's being doing. So let's actually start there. Writing the equation down, 4 times 3x plus 2 equals negative 16. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that 4 on the outside of the parentheses. So the opposite of multiplying by 4 is to divide by 4. Cancels, cancels. And I get 3x plus 2, what's left over. And negative 16 divided by 4 is negative 4. The next thing I need to do is I need to reverse the plus 2. That's been added to 2. So the opposite of adding 2 would be to minus 2 both sides. 2 minus 2 cancels, and I get 3x equals negative 4 minus 2 would be negative 6. The last thing I'm doing is I'm reversing the 3 times the x. So the opposite of multiplying by 3 is to divide by 3. And you can see I get x equals negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. Now it says solve this equation by first distributing by multiplying by 4. So in other words, distribute the 4 through parentheses. So let's take 4 times 3x plus 2 equals negative 16. Well, if we do that, 4 times the 3x is 12x. And then 4 times the 2 would be plus 8. And that's equal to negative 16. Well, we have to get rid of, we're almost done, we have to get rid of the positive 8 and the 12. Well, the positive 8 is going to go first, and the opposite of adding 8 would be to subtract 8, both sides. Cancels. And I get 12x equals, and then here I have negative 16 minus 8. Well, negative 16 minus 8, let me see here. That's negative 24. Well, the opposite of multiplying by 12 would be to divide by 12. So divide both sides by 12. X is now by itself. And negative 24 divided by 12 is also x equals negative 2. And so you can see we arrived at the same solution, right, 2 different ways. I hope you found this video tutorial to be helpful. Remember to pause or rewind the video as you need to. See you next time.